Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Ari, and on this episode, we have a special guest, Ajay Shankar. I hope I pronounced that right.
It's all good, man. Yeah.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, so on this podcast, we talk about mental health, emotional intelligence, and self love. Have any of these topics really been on your mind lately?
All the time, man. All the time. This is all I think about. I mean, I think when I have conversations with people when I bring up one of these topics or all of them, they ask me, oh, did you have to learn about these topics because you're a sales trainer and you're into sales? And I always tell them that it's actually the other way around. I've noticed like these things are the fundamentals of our life. And I'm glad more people are talking about it more openly. People like yourself really promoting this. Um, you can only like one person doing it at once multiplied by 10,000 people doing it. Now that's going to cause some ripple effect. And I'm very, very happy about it because it's going to improve like all areas of our life, whether it's our relationship with the personal relationship we have in our lives, whether it's with friends, romantic relationships, at work, business, sales. It's the clients. It's going to change everything. Um, like improving the quality of life. These things are like the foundation. So I think about it all the time, like every single day.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know that a lot of people don't learn about this stuff in school. I'm baffled why, even though we take science and history and math, and this is something that can help people in their everyday life. Did you learn about this stuff in school? And if you didn't, when did you start learning about this stuff?
Yeah, so I would like to think that I was kind of lucky, and I don't know why I was lucky. I just know that I was lucky because I didn't learn about any of these things. I mean, I did not, I don't, most, I mean, when you're like 10 or 15, I don't think most people know what emotional intelligence means. Some people think, is that when you are overly emotional? Or is it when you have knowledge about emotions? That's when you're emotionally intelligent, people don't know about this stuff when they're that age. But for me it was I don't know, I had no influence at all, but for some reason the stuff that I was learning at school, um it I was not good at school. I was pretty bad. Okay, I just barely got by. And so I was not interested in the like physics, chemistry, even though I think physics is great. Like it teaches a lot about the universe, which like quantum physics, it's kind of related somehow. But for me personally, it was not like my favorite subjects. But I was very much interested in people, and that's where it all started. And it kind of started from like the way the teachers were teaching. I realized that when this person is teaching, I'm more interested in the subject. Even though it's boring, she has a way to make it interesting. But when it's this other teacher, she kind of looks like she just hates being here. And because of that, that energy is transferred into the room. And I gravitated towards people who had that good energy within them. And I tried my best to carry that energy within me. And when that energy was working in the best way possible, I felt how I could realize how I felt. And also, I could see that I would be talking to someone and I felt like how they were feeling. And I'm like, what are these things? So I kind of got interested in the thing that I did not even know what to call it. I did not have access to internet. It was like at that time there was no internet. But I was just like, yeah, this thing that I feel, like I want to just feel more of it. So for me, like that was a story. Like, what about you? Like, how did you come about these things?
Yeah, so I'll always share the story that for the first probably 19 years of my life, I didn't understand or feel my emotions at all. Through society, we're taught that kind of guys aren't supposed to feel emotions or that makes you weak. And I kind of bottled them all up until my freshman year of college when it all kind of started crumbling down. I started going through these mental health issues, anxiety and depression, and I realized that there's such a large stigma around these issues that I felt too afraid to speak up. So it took me so long to speak up because I didn't feel like anybody would understand or I felt
Yeah.
all alone or that people would judge me because there's such a large stigma around these topics because nobody is talking about them. So it took me a while to really gain the courage to speak up. And when I did, I started finding things that really interested me. At the time, I was running this website called Sports Wolves, actually got the shirt for it, where I was sharing my sports betting picks because that was all that really interested me at the time. That was all my passion, that was all my desire. And then I kind of realized through introspection that this wasn't the impact that I wanted to have on the world. And what really interested me was I started journaling a lot and writing a lot of poetry. And that really helped me with my mental health, with my self love journey. And then I started doing things like meditating and cold showers. And I started to think, well, why were these things not taught in school? Why did I not learn how to meditate when I was in kindergarten? I was learning the
Yeah.
numbers, I was learning the alphabet. Why didn't I learn how to breathe and handle my emotions? And I realized that these things are so simple, but if you're not taught them at a very young age, you start to build all these habits that are going to become very hard to ingrain. So I'm lucky that I caught it while I did. And now this is the stuff that I'm just extremely passionate about, always posting content every single day. And then as well as just sharing my stories and hearing from other people's stories to learn from, but also for people to watch and see, wow, if this person went through that thing, it might not be the exact same thing about what I'm going through, but he made it through. And these are some of the techniques he used. And these are some of the things that really work for him. Maybe I could try some of these things. So that's what really inspires me. And it definitely just to hear people's stories like yourself is very inspiring to me, also, just to learn from.
Yeah, man. I mean, imagine like you learn this stuff from kindergarten. Like take a random kid. You're just like you're 15 years old. Like, what are you gonna be like? Just think about it. Awesome, right? And also, I'm looking at people who are. It's kind of a sad thing to see when you see someone who is, let's say, in their 60s or 70s. They have clearly like lived most of their life than what's left, even if they're going to live until like 100 years old. And you see that thing in their eyes, and you see that there's a lot of habits that they have picked up since they were kids. And now there's this, the best way that I can describe it is you see like this haze in front of their eyes. And unfortunately, I feel like when you're that far into it, it's exponentially harder to change. It is easier. Like, how old are you?
I'm 22, just turned
Okay.
22.
Yeah. So it's easy for like guys in our 20s to transform more than someone in their 30s. And it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, man, I'm a huge proponent of like I would love to see a reality in the future where kindergarten, day one, how to meditate. What is meditation? How to observe your thoughts. And it kind of like God, like yeah, it's amazing. Like I always tell my partner that when we have kids, like the first thing that they got to learn is this stuff. Not get them obsessed with um like materialistic stuff. That's not the stuff that's going to actually make them happy and give them a meaningful life. It's these things that's going to set the foundation. Yeah.
I love that you bring that up because I would say that the one argument, because I always say that this stuff should 100% be taught in school. But the one argument that I could hear people saying is, well, these are things that their parents should be teaching them. To which I rebuttal, well, what if their parents didn't learn that in school? And
Exactly.
and that's exactly where it rests because a lot of the people that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s either didn't learn this stuff in school or had to learn it the hard way. And they don't have enough time to teach it to their kids. But I'm not saying that a lot of the stuff that we learn or teach in school is useless, but I would say a good portion of it could be used on building life skills and teaching people to follow their passions and teaching people to find their unique talents. Because I know that you'll probably agree with this, but I want to get your perspective that the school system gets it wrong where treat each individual like they're the exact same. They don't try
Yeah.
to say, because I know that you sounded like you're a people's person and you couldn't have taken any classes on people. You couldn't have taken any psychology class, but I know that I was the exact opposite. But I would have loved to take a class in like journaling and really finding my passion because I didn't really feel like I had a voice. And just culminated with that and people memorizing information for multiple choice tests when in the real world, you're never taking a multiple choice test. Have you ever taken a multiple choice test at your job or whatever you do?
Nah, life doesn't work that way.
Exactly. But why
Yeah.
in school are we not modeling after the way life is, that you write stuff and you talk to people and you have conversations? Why couldn't a test be you talking in a group of five people and sharing your emotions and sharing your journey and trying to help people? I don't get that.
And you know what's interesting? Because, like, as you said, a lot of things that we learn like, that we're not saying that everything is wrong or BS or anything, but we are saying is a lot of things are important. For example, it's helpful to learn the numbers, right? It's helpful to learn the alphabets, because otherwise it would be hard for us to communicate right now. So those things are important. Maybe some stuff about physics and all that stuff, like basic geographical stuff. But the cool thing is, if the foundation of learning was the stuff that we were talking about, then it's going to be much more interesting to learn these other things. And it's going to be easy to learn the other things, because, like, I had troubles learning. I didn't know how to study. Everybody told me to study, but nobody taught me how to study. It was a huge problem. I just did not understand it. Like, study well the next time. How? How? Someone teach me. I don't have the knowledge for it. But if they taught those things, then it's just gonna everything. There's gonna be like a check mark and everything. I think that, so they don't learn this at home because their parents didn't learn. And I'm thinking that the people who started the school, they're also people who didn't learn this stuff. So I guess it's like a generational thing. And now, if people can come forward and contribute to the educational system, I hope that can change the world.
Yeah, I love how
Yeah.
you said that also. There's just a lot to unpack in that. But one thing is that exactly the people, because I always try to like assign blame. And I realize that that's not the way to look at it anymore, because you can't blame the teachers for not teaching the stuff because they have to follow their curriculum. You could say, what about the superintendent? It's not their fault either because they have the state and federal guidelines. Well, then you look at those people and, well, they just don't know about it. They don't even know that this stuff is that it exists because they're kind of detached from reality. So the way I look at it is that my goal was to try to get this into the education system, to pitch schools. I still might try to do that, but I've realized that it's not that that's kind of a wasted effort, but I've noticed that the kind of the niche I have right now is by posting this stuff on social media where people are choosing to learn about this stuff in their free time, trying to make this stuff entertaining. But sometimes when you're in school, kids are kind of turned off to learning because the way they've been taught is that learning is supposed to be boring. And I'm
Yeah,
trying to change that because learning is supposed to be entertaining,
definitely.
engaging, and fun. You're not supposed to be lectured for an hour and a half in a room with 500 people where nobody knows your name. That's not how learning is supposed to work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting because I was a very bad geography student back in school. I was bad at everything, but I was bad at geography as well. And now I'm very interested in locating countries in the globe, understanding different cities, the capital cities, the different like climatic conditions and all that stuff. And it's interesting to me now because I'm looking at it from my own perspective. And, like, if you think about physics, if you think about chemistry, they can all be interesting. But if you ask people, hey, what do you think about chemistry? Did you like that in school? It's like, oh no, I hated it in school. But I guarantee that if they were taught in a different way, as you said, if it was made more interesting, they would look at it way differently, and also think about how that's going to impact their life afterwards. They go to work, and I feel like a lot of people are not satisfied with their jobs, and I really really believe that if they were taught in a way where everything was interesting, they would have just learned to love their job anyways.
Yeah. And that's also another good point. But I think a lot of the reason that a lot of people don't like their jobs is because they know their jobs are kind of meaningless. And not meaningless as in like it's not adding something to society, but meaningless in the point that they feel like their contributions could be bigger or they feel like they could be doing something that's more meaningful to them. And a big problem is that people aren't people aren't encouraged to try to journal and think about what they actually want to do. Because if I know that if I didn't journal for a full straight year or 2 straight years, I would have never known that my passion was teaching people mental health, emotional intelligence, and self-love. And I could have gotten to the point where I was 40 and still not have figured it out because I was never
Yeah.
encouraged to try. And a big thing is that a lot of people say that, oh, like finding your passion isn't real. It's real. All it is just trying a ton of things. I tried a ton of things: sports betting and making music and painting and art and all this stuff. And I stumbled upon one thing, which was poetry, which I was like, wow, I think that I'm good at this. And this is something that I would love to challenge myself to get better. But
Yeah.
a big part, I want to go back to what you said about how you didn't know how to study and nobody taught you how to study. And I never thought about it from that perspective. But why aren't people taught how to study? How did you end up finding out how, or did you ask somebody?
Um, no, nobody was talking about it. So, well, I mean, I asked people around, and what they said is you have to read it over and over and over and over again. And I tried to read over and over and over again, and nothing was really happening, you know? And then they said, you got to write it down. And I tried writing it down. And I'm not saying these are bad things, but these are like, you're not getting to the bottom of, like, you're not getting to the core, like how, like, learning through stories could be an example. Learning with real life stuff. So we had a you have like a chemistry lab and a physics lab, and you show up there for, that's how it was for me. You show up there once in a while, and you got to follow this manual, and then you learn the stuff there. And that was not that bad. It was somewhat interesting, but that was only a small part of it. But the all the things that we learned, what if they kind of moved it around a little bit, and they started with the practical stuff, and then it's like, okay, now that you have learned the practical stuff, now open your books. And then now when they go home and then they ask them to read it, guess what? Now it's all different. I'm reading it, and I'm not just reading it like a zombie. I picture what I saw in the class, that what the teacher was showing me. If it's like physics, like whatever the teacher was showing me, and all of a sudden, it's not tomorrow. Like I used to forget stuff all the time. Like I would learn today, and tomorrow morning, like before the exam, I open the book and I'm like, I don't remember anything. Those problems won't exist if the way they taught was different.
Yeah, I really like how you say that. So I'm an accounting major. I'm currently a senior, and I did an internship last year, beginning of 2020, in auditing. And I don't know if you know anything about auditing, but I knew absolutely zero about auditing before going into that. Hadn't taken a class or anything. And I learned everything by just getting taught it and by doing things and making mistakes and learning from them. And then what's funny is that after the internship was over, I went back to class and I took an auditing class, and the stuff made a little more sense to me because I had already done it. But I know
Yeah.
a ton of the people who were in the auditing class that didn't do auditing didn't understand it at all because it's so
Mhm.
abstract. And a lot of these things, I like how you say, it's like hands-on learning. The way that people learn best is by doing something, making a mistake, and learning from it. But the point is, our current education system doesn't encourage mistake making. It has this illusion that you need to be perfect, that you need to get a 95 out of 100 to get an A to put a number on your worth.
Yeah, man. I was just thinking about something when we were talking about like studying stuff. So, all of us have this thing that, oh, I'm into this, I'm not into this. And I do agree that there's some stuff that we are more passionate about than the others. Like you're into like poetry, like that's when you kind of feel like that flow state. You really love what's happening. When I'm coaching someone on sales, or when I'm even selling, that's when I really feel that flow state. But what I have noticed is a lot of things that I think that I don't like, the reason why I don't like it is because of the way I look at it. And I learned this because it was like a year and a half ago, when I was selling this um coaching program that was very technical, and I am not a technical person myself, which is the story that I had. in my head. And I found it extremely difficult because I knew the questions that I have to ask a person. But when I asked these questions, I kind of got the same feeling that I felt when I was in school reading these stuff, and there was not much substance behind it. And at some point, I started like looking at it differently, and I started like making stories about it in my head. So I started taking these different, like, okay, so this is a current situation of the prospect, and this is a desired situation, and there's some stuff that the person is having troubles with, and we have solutions to those problems. So I started thinking, how can I communicate these solutions to someone using different kind of stories? And when I started thinking about it like that, just a couple of months, what I've noticed is I started selling more because I started communicating better. And the reason why I was able to communicate it better with another person is because I was able to communicate it better with myself. I started understanding these concepts not from like this boring perspective. There was a story around it, and I found myself being extremely interested in it. It just like I kind of hit that same flow state that I hit in other stuff by talking about things that I thought initially that I was never going to be interested in. So like we are way more open-minded than we think we are. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
I really like that. And it's also along the lines of you're not going to like something or you're going to fear something until you get to know it. You might think that you don't like somebody because you've heard your friends talk about them in this way, but maybe you meet them and you talk to them and you get to know them and you're like, wow, maybe this person is just misunderstood, or maybe my friend was just like jealous for a certain reason. And I feel like that's a lot of the problems we have in our world right now. It's kind of like high school, but everything is high school or everything is middle school. And that's
Yeah.
why it's funny that those are like the two demographics that I try to teach to, because people that are younger are going to understand this stuff more, especially now when they see all the stuff that like bullying that's going on. I think
Mm.
that bullying is so avoidable if we start teaching people about mental health and emotional intelligence during kindergarten, first grade. The reason that people lash out at other people and hurt other people is because they're hurt inside. They want to make somebody else feel the way they do, but all they really want is attention. All they really want to feel is that love inside. Why don't we
Yeah.
start trying to teach them about that earlier so we don't have to do all these preventative things after? It's kind of like the thing that's like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think that's what the phrase is.
Yeah, man, I can relate with this so much. In fact, um, I mean, I'm having a lot of regret at this moment because the other day I was checking my phone. I was checking some of the messages from maybe 6 months to a year ago, and I was reading these messages from people that I ended my relationship with. Like, the, we were not in touch anymore, and things kind of ended not the best way. Um, I have a story about what kind of a person they are and then how I don't like them. And I'm sure they had the same about me. And I looked at the chats when I was in a clear state of mind, and it was like, oh my goodness, it was me. It was me because, like, I have this problem where, and I'm way better at it now. And I'm not proud of it. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but I have to because we got to kill our ego somehow. Um, because when I was in school, because I was interested in this, like, because I was a people's person, I always had my way around people. So I developed this image that, God, it's cringy to say it. I had this idea that I'm better than the other people, and that was so messed up. And I was not like a mean person or anything. I was not a bully like by any shape. Like I was not like I never wanted to like actively offend people. But if, like, for example, we would be having a conversation, you and I, and let's just say you say something like, uh, "Hey man, maybe you could have like a better background for these videos because like there's like this plug point stuff, and there's it's not really like lively. So just take it if you want." And then I would be like, "Is he? What's he trying to do here?" instead of like taking that into heart and be like, hey, maybe I can look around the house and see maybe what are some of the better places where I can place a camera so there's a better background. Instead of that, um, like the other day I was I was trying out a software for LinkedIn. So I don't automate anything, but I was just testing out this automation software. And I put like it's the software that sends out connection requests to people with a note on it. It's like a templated note, which I'm not into, but I just wanted to test it out and see how it works out. And I got a response from someone, and they said, AJ, imagine if you get a message from someone with this line. How would you feel about it? I know I checked your profile and I see that you are a great resource when it comes to sales, but just by using that line, you messed up your entire credibility. And I saw this, and I'm not afraid of confrontations. So like I've done things in the past where I would just like, oh my, this was so weird. I would like there's a tool that I have where if you put someone's profile on LinkedIn and if you click on it, their email address and their phone number would show up if they have provided their phone number. Like I would just literally, like, it's so weird. I would like call them up and be like, hey, I'm the guy that you did on LinkedIn. Just because I wanted to kind of prove my point. I had that rage that way. And I felt this anger. I felt this anger. I went into his profile and I was just trying to critique my mind. And then at some point, I'm like, hold on a second. I'm trying to change here. And this was like 5 days ago, by the way. I'm trying to, it's like, when was it? 5 days ago. I'm trying to change myself and I don't want to do this. And I paused for a second and I told him, hey man, I appreciate you taking the time to share that. I am going to take your advice to heart, and I'm going to improve it. And then the moment I said it, some people kind of reached out to me saying that, hey, I'm interested in like what you got offered and all that stuff. And immediately, like before that, like I just felt like better all of a sudden. Suddenly I felt better. And I realized that the universe is real, man. When you do actions like that, when you can like give up your ego, the universe is going to reward you for that. And then this door of like possibilities open up in front of your life. And it's not something that we do once and then the next day it's over. It is a constant thing that we do like day in and day out.
Wow, I really enjoy you sharing that story. And one thing that I love is like people being vulnerable. And I
Yeah.
always say this, that vulnerability is strength. Like our society tries to say that being vulnerable is weak, but that's not true because when I didn't tell anybody about my mental health issues, that was me being weak. But when I found the courage to speak up and ask for help, then that's showing strength. And the fact that you were able to basically admit what you were doing wrong and the ability to have that self-awareness where a ton of people don't have that self-awareness and you didn't have it, but then you built it kind of like a muscle, kind of like a habit. And I love how you kind of just said that letting your ego go to the side, letting your spirit or whatever else it is shine through. And it's basically that the ego is the fear-based negativity. It doesn't want to take any criticism, any critique. It takes it too personally. But then the spirit on the other side, whatever you want to call it, is the love, is the can look at it from the bigger picture and say, wow, if I take this person's advice, it could actually help me. We could actually
Yeah.
maybe work together on something else. And I
Yeah.
just wish more people would have a mindset like that. But the problem is that so many people get too deep into it where they don't want to admit that they were wrong because, again, they would regret
Yeah.
so many things. But the whole
Yeah.
point is that if you admit it now, you still have so much time to keep going. But if you don't admit it, then you're going to basically be living the rest of your life in this kind of charade.
Yeah, man. I mean, it just kind of reminds me of something like admitting stuff. Like, so it was a couple of months ago. My girlfriend and I, we were in a train. So I live in the Netherlands, and I don't speak Dutch yet. I'm still learning, and my girlfriend is Dutch, and we were sitting in a train, and she told me that there were these two guys, two seats behind us. They were talking about sales. So because it's sales, she said one guy was telling the other guy how he really needs to get good at sales. So I was like, "Oh, I'm here," and and I and I stood up, and I walked up to him, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry for if I'm like invading your personal space or privacy or listening into your conversation, but happened to hear what you guys were talking about. I'm a sales trainer myself. If you're interested, you can get in touch. And this guy, literally 2 minutes ago, he was saying how he's struggling with it and he needs help. The moment I said that, this was his response: "Oh no, I got selling figured out." And you know what? I'm not even here to judge him because I'm that guy. I used to be that guy. And hey, we are having this conversation right now, and I'm telling you like how I'm making steps to improve and I'm slowly improving and I'm having that self-awareness. Next week, I could make this mistake again. So I think it's important for people like who are improving to understand that, hey, just even if you have like started improving, like part of your ego wants to see that finished product saying that I got this figured out. And it takes like, man, it takes, you really got to let go of your ego and understand that every day morning it's back to ground zero. You're learning again. And then once you have that kind of figured out, then you're like, every single moment it's I'm back to ground zero and I'm learning the stuff. Yeah, man, like what were some of the things in your life and you really had to like control, like, understand your ego, observe it, and you worked on it, or you're still working on it right now?
Yeah, there were so many things that contributed to my mental health problems. And one of the huge things was that I always wanted to blame everything that happened to me on everybody else except for me. I was
Yeah.
never looking to take responsibility for my part in anything, which is just crazy to think about now. But this is the mindset that so many people have, that something bad would happen to me. I didn't try to say, oh, what role did I play in this? How could I have done something differently? Because in the end, you can't control anybody or anything around you. All you can control is yourself. That was one big thing. But another huge thing, which I know everybody will be able to relate to, is that not being able to let go of the past is just huge. You're not being centered in this moment right now, or your mind is way too far off in the future. And the past and the future aren't real. They're just stories that you tell yourself to try to justify something. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, people don't like to hear this, but all of the stories you tell yourself about the past aren't actually what happened. They're just stories. And the further you get from what actually happened, the more likely the story is even more messed up or different than it was. It's kind of like playing the game telephone. You keep going around, and the more people you tell, the more different the story gets. It's the same thing with the way it works in your mind. The more times you keep repeating yourself the same story, the more real it's going to feel to you. You're going to think that this is actually what happened. And the ability to just let that go, trust me, it's hard. It takes meditation, patience, consistency, discipline, effort. These aren't words that are sexy in our society. People want that magic pill, the quick fix.
Yeah.
That's
Three
not
steps.
exactly, and that's not it. And that's what I like to share on my journey because it's real. It shows you that if I've meditated every day for 3 years, do you meditate at all?
I do. I don't like schedule it in, but I do like to believe that I'm meditating different times during the day because I mean I don't really believe in the. I'm not saying it's bad, but I don't do the traditional way of meditation because I have spent a lot of time observing myself, observing my thoughts. So not all the time, but a lot of times I'm aware of the like the internal stuff that's going on. So maybe I don't sit down in a specific position, close my eyes, but I do observe my thoughts and I do give the opportunity for my thoughts to kind of pass through my body and just let it run its course. And that's what I think, man, oh my goodness, this is what meditation is, right? It's like you're letting the thoughts and the sensations be there and you're not doing anything about it. You're not trying to control it, you're not trying to stop it, you're not trying to judge it, you're not trying to change it. You're just letting it where it is. And that thing is actually hard for people to do because we have not taught how to do that. And that takes practice to get there because it's so easy to go jump for the phone. Like go to public transport and just go to the backside and just see what people are doing. This is exactly what you would see. They would be on their phone. And if you look at what they're doing, if you want to creep into their phone, they're not even doing much. They're literally going from one social media to another, refreshing, watching the stories, putting heart signs. And it's like this zombie behavior that human beings are kind of wrapped up in. And it's just the thing that I'm sad about is maybe I should not be sad about it. Maybe I just should focus on the people that tries to make it different, which is, on one hand, there are people like yourself and a lot of other people who are spreading this message. So that's happening, which is great. And I hope as we move forward in time, more and more people are going to come forward and do this stuff. But on the other hand, there are, social media is just getting more and more toxic. So we are in a competition. And the question is like, who's going to win?
I,
Or is there even a winner or a loser? I don't know. What do you think?
I love that you brought that up. I definitely want to talk about that, but I want to go back to meditation first before I talk about that, because I could talk about that for hours. So
Yeah.
meditation, and I love what you said, that this is something that I realized through my journey, is that there is no one correct way to meditate. And the problem is we don't know this, because the only thing that we hear about is, oh, like monks or like meditating and they're sitting like this. And the way I
Yeah.
started, I was like sitting cross-legged on the floor. And one thing for me is that I'm not even flexible enough to sit cross-legged on the floor, and it is uncomfortable for me. And
Yeah.
I'll do yoga now and then, but when I meditate, I just sit on my chair like this. And the thing is that when you're doing something and you're mindful of it, that is meditation, exactly what you were talking about. But it doesn't have to be in the same way. It doesn't have to be that you just sit there and think of nothing, because if you just start meditating, that is an unrealistic goal. When I started meditating for the first time, I could only do it for 30 seconds. There was too much stuff going through my mind, and it just gets too scary and painful. And the more you build up the consistency, I'll always talk about this, the consistency in meditation. I started to go for 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then five, then 10, to the point now where I can go for 20 to 30 minutes. And I pretty much do it right after I shower. So, one of the first things I do every day. And I just see how it changes my mindset and how it changes the rest of my day, because that that 20 minutes that you're spending on yourself, basically, I like to compare it to when you're meditating. It's kind of like you're scrubbing your mind clean with a golden sponge. Your mind has
I
all
like
this
that.
gunk and dirt and mess, and all you're doing is just breathing and clearing your mind, letting that stuff all out. You like to hang on to this clutter, you like to hang on to the baggage, because you have stories around it, because your ego gets some sense of identity from it. And when you start to kind of let that stuff go, you realize that you are far more than any of that stuff ever is. But you also realize how much that stuff was weighing you down. And I know for the longest time, that stuff was weighing me down. And again, it's not as easy. Like I could just say, like, let it go, detach, things that people say. But no, I had to
Yeah.
put in the time and the effort. I had to get to the root of the issues. I had to meditate every single day, cold showers, things like that. But trust me, when you get to the other side, when I meditate for 20 to 30 minutes to start the morning, I'll always say this just to tell people how real this is for me. I try to describe the experience. It's like I am legitimately crying tears of joy in the morning when I get past like 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
it's just like the happiest you'll ever be. But the point is that you're not going to get there just the first time you meditate. You're not going to be able to meditate for 20 minutes. You're not going to get there unless you build up and take baby steps and are consistent. And the whole point is you're not going to want to keep up with it if it's not something that works for you. So if you're doing something that somebody else told you to do, you're not going to want to stick with it. I know that some people do guided meditations and that works for them. I don't like guided meditations, but if it works for you, stick with it. Do it. If you like to do yoga, if you don't want to be sitting still, if you want to be doing positions, do that because it works for you. If you don't even want to take the time, but you practice mindfulness throughout your day, that's how it works for you. And that's your form of meditation. And there are infinite ways to practice meditation. And the only thing that matters is that it works for you and that you're becoming more mindful of your thoughts and not judging them. And that's it.
Yeah, I think the problem is that people don't know what meditation is. And I was talking to my neighbor upstairs, and she was saying how I've been trying meditation for 1 month, but it's not working for me. And then I'm like, of course it's not going to work for you. Like it's not going to work for anyone, you know. And then I asked her, okay, so tell me more. Like, what do you focus on? I'm sitting down and I'm trying to focus on the present moment, and I think about pizza. And then now it's ruined. And then I'm like, okay, how do you feel about the fact that you thought about pizza? I mean, I messed up, right? It's wrong. Who told you that? You were supposed to be here when you meditate, right? God, that is an assumption that people have. That people would sit down and they think, I can't get to the present moment. You can't fight it. Like you cannot, like, it's so weird. You cannot get to the present moment because you are in the present moment. So how can you get to something? It's like saying that, man, I can't sit in the couch. Man, I can never access the Zoom platform. What do you mean? You are on Zoom right now. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that also because I know that for me, like I didn't start feeling any I think that meditation is more of a cumulative effect. I don't think I started feeling any like positive benefits from meditation until at least a couple of months in. So it's one of those things where you might just need to have faith, you might just need to have trust, but I know that I've been doing it pretty much every day for 3 years now, and
Mhm.
I just can
Wow.
tell the cumulative effect that's had. But you might want to give up early in the journey because when you're early on in the journey, that's when you have to face all these negative, fearful
Oh,
emotions. And the whole point is that these are the ones that are all on the surface and these are the ones that try to attack you. But the point is, when you face them with love, I know it sounds easy. It's not easy facing these fearful emotions with love, negative emotions with love, because it's painful. But the whole point is that if you avoid the pain, it's going to build up like it did within me until the point where it could cause a mental health issue. It could cause something else. But then once you get through those things, you get to the peace, the bliss, the joy that's really inside you. And that's what a lot of the people in our society are lacking. The whole thing is, our whole culture is that capitalism, all this stuff, you need to buy things because you don't feel complete within. You already have everything that you need within. All everybody wants is just to be loved. And
yeah.
that love is already within you. You don't need to
Yeah.
buy a product, you don't need to buy a course. And the whole
No.
thing is that they don't teach you all this psychology stuff because if you knew, and this is, I want to go more into sales. This is the stuff that you know is that this is a lot of the people get sold to based on fear. And I think the culture is changing that more of the sales are going to be love based and working together and adding value and not taking advantage of other people's psychological things that they don't know about.
Yeah. Before that, by the way, I wanted to show you my wallpaper. Maybe you're going to be resonating with this.
Oh, I've seen that from I think an Aaron Doughty video. I don't know if you know who that
Oh,
is.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the have you heard the book Power versus Force
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
by Dr. David Hawkins?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is really like, so you have different levels of consciousness. And I made a video about it in the past where talking about sales. Okay. So you probably would not be able to see it, but let's say so fear vibrates at 100, and enlightenment vibrates at 700, and then you have peace at 600, joy 540, love 500. If two people, they have same experience with sales, and let's say they had a sales job and they brought in the same numbers, like literally identical numbers, so everyone's like, yeah, these guys have the same skills. If person A is vibrating at 200, which is a vibration of courage, and if person B is vibrating at 540, vibration of joy, who do you think is going to do better, man? It's obvious. And I know some guys and girls who are naturally vibrating at a higher level. And then they ask me, hey, you want to check out my sales call? Can you just give me some feedback? And I listen to it and I'm like, this is not you. I know you as a person. We've had several conversations. And I tell them, you can be an amazing salesperson. But the problem is now you're trying to do sales. You are trying to, as you said, you cannot take this other person's method and copy it if it's not working for you. You cannot listen to my affirmation if it's not working for you. Maybe it's working for you, then cool. And the state of sales right now is that people have the scripted way of doing sales, and those people are sales trainers, and they say that this is a script that helped me increase my conversion by 392.572%. And hey, it sounds appealing. I want to know what I want to get that percentage. It's more than 100. Damn, I want that. And then they get it, and then they try it, and then they go on Facebook groups and say, this sales script doesn't work. And then the other person says, it's a great sales script. It works for me. But the thing is, that person that who said it works for me, they can relate with the script in some shape or form. Luck, accident, coincidence, I don't know what it is, they kind of clicked. But the problem is, it only clicks with the small percentage of people. And the state is that these people are good at selling and the rest of them are not. And a lot of people, like when they hear that I'm a sales trainer, they say, oh my God, it must be very hard. Not really. Not really. If it's hard if you don't take care of yourself. It's hard if you don't understand yourself. And a lot of people are trying to, how can I understand you if I cannot understand myself? And people say, like, it is one thing you hear in sales a lot, that it's not about you, it's about the prospect. I agree 100%. But if you don't understand yourself, how the hell are I going to understand the person talking to you? Like, you can give me the most amazing information and I have the perfect product for you. But if I don't know what's going on in here, how am I going to know what's going on in there? Easy as that.
Yeah, exactly. And that could come up because maybe a prospect is saying something negative about the product and you get too attached, your ego gets too attached, and the ego thinks that it's being under attack. And then if you look at it from another way, like, no, they have a question and I should be able to willingly answer it because this person needs more information or they're not going to consider buying it. And
Yeah.
too many people think that they're entitled to the sale. You're not entitled to anything. This
No.
person took time out of their day because they might want to buy this product that they think will better their life or add them value in some way. And your whole point is to basically see if they're a good match for the product, if the product will help them, and if they will help the product, if it will change their life in some way. And if you can't help answer that question, then you're not really doing them any service at all.
Yeah. Hey man, is it are we could we talk about like the name of the product, the name of the course that we the program that we were in? Should
Yeah,
we
yeah,
talk about?
yeah. I want to talk about that in a little. I want to go back to the when you're talking about the toxicity on social media and the
Yeah.
negativity, because this is something I'll always say. I would say that because I'm currently on like post on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I'll probably start posting on LinkedIn once I make my brand a little more professional, but or maybe to share this podcast also because I know that's where we met. But social media is probably 90, 80 or 90% negativity and toxicity. And that's the stuff that the algorithm is rewarding. And since I'm a person who's spreading positivity, talking about self-love, mental health, emotional intelligence, not always the most exciting topic, but I'm not like shaking my ass on camera. I'm not like doing a dance. So that's not the stuff that goes viral on TikTok. But I do
Yeah.
know that I have this audience, this niche that I see is growing, but also inspiring these people to say, you could win this way. You could win by being authentic and sharing your message and sharing your positivity. And I see that people like you and more people that I've met on this journey are on similar missions. So it gives me more hope that maybe one day we can make social media 50-50 or maybe even more positive than negative. It's a huge task, but I know that it'll only happen by us working together, speaking up and sharing our stories.
Yeah, I think the best way to look at it would be, we could create our own corner in social media, and people who come there, that's their world, and they don't see what's outside. Like, ah, man, I mean, I don't want to go too much into these things because, like, then we would be going to that the negative stuff as well. But like, have you? I don't like talking like bad stuff about people, but and I'm not trying to like talk shit about people, but just to like bring up the point. Have you heard of this YouTuber named Jake Paul?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have.
Yeah, so he has a lot of followers. Man, dude is toxic as fuck if you listen to his stuff. And he I think he's like 23, 24 or something like that. And most of his followers are teenagers, and not 1 or 2 millions, like millions of people, like I think, or more than 10 million, or almost 20 million people. That's a lot of people, man, listening to this crap. It's a lot of people listening to this, and think about how their mind is being programmed. And he promotes like this hate culture, like hating on people, offending people, just so much toxicity, and then the stuff is getting spread. um and sometimes, so I'm also like into I love watching like fights, like you know UFC, like mixed martial arts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like boxing and stuff. So like this guy is doing some stuff in the fight business. So because I watch the fight stuff, his videos pop up on my feed. And even me who is aware of this stuff, I find myself opening YouTube and I see this. And for 1 second I click on it. And then I'm like, wait, what did I just do? And if me being this aware, if I'm doing that, think about people who have no idea about like this self-awareness, meditation, observing thoughts, observing the action, seeing that how it all, how they, what they consume, what you consume end up consuming you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very interesting that you bring that up because I don't know if I've really watched much of his content, so I can't really judge on like the
Yeah.
negativity or toxicity. But I do know that his fan base is like very young kids, probably young boys, and
Yeah.
I know that if you're somebody with that big of a platform, you said like tens of millions or something, and
Yeah, man.
you're not trying to spread like a positive and loving message, like I can't really have any sympathy for you on any means. And a good example that I like to bring up is for the opposite, for young girls. They follow the Kardashians and they have this fake sense of beauty. And oh, if you want to be beautiful, you need to buy this expensive makeup or all this lipstick and all this stuff. And it's just promoting this fake, toxic world that everybody follows them because they think that they're so beautiful, but they don't know what they actually look like because you never see the real them without all the angles and the filters and the corners. And I know that the only way that I'll be able to compete was with somebody like Jake Paul. I'll probably never get to that level, but I know that I need to make my content more entertaining. I know that to be a teacher, I need to teach and entertain. My content right now is probably 95% education, 5% entertainment. In the future, it's going to have to be 80% entertainment, 20% education for people to stick around and build an audience. But I know that there are things that I can learn from everybody. And it's definitely interesting that the way that he seems to capture your attention and other people's attention is something that I know that I could learn from as well.
Yeah. That is so important because people love entertainment. If the same information that people can find on like pure information stuff, versus if it's put on Netflix under entertainment, they're gonna watch that more. It's actually an important point, man. You would see a lot of people on LinkedIn use this thing where they do these little skits, and I think I used to do that in the past. Now I want to get back into that more, because I think the problem is like when it comes to like business stuff, like people have this impression I gotta be professional, I can't fool around. But actually fooling around is it actually really works, because I mean even like when you get on sales calls with people, right? um, I have said some really weird shit to people on the phone that if I say this to anyone else, they have people tell me that, dude, I mean, no offense, man, you're a cool guy, but like if you're in a sales call with me and if you say that to me, I would be pretty creeped out. And the weird thing is, I'm not going to just, it's not a technique. I'm not going to just say it out like that. It's when you're in that position, when you're going through the emotions, you're a human being who likes to have fun. So you would hear something like that and it would probably entertain you and you would laugh. And now we're laughing. We're 1 minute into the conversation and now you and I are laughing. Now, you know Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, so he's like, I mean, if anybody in this world understands sales, it's this guy. Because when most business salespeople, when they're selling a service or a product, this guy is in talking to the bad guys who have like gun, like people at gunpoint and saying that I'm going to shoot right now. And this guy can talk to them in a way where they would put the gun down, come out, and surrender. So if anybody understands sales, it's this guy. No one gets it better than him.
Yeah.
And oh God, sorry, man, my mind just kind of went blank. What were we talking about again?
Well, before that, we were kind of talking about like making education more
Yeah.
entertaining.
Sorry,
Yeah.
talking about, we were laughing. So he said that you are 31% smarter. There are like researchers that proves it. You're 31% smarter when you're in a better mood. 31%. It's a big deal. Like it's a big percentage. Think about it, right? So if you and I are on a call, and if I have a product that is a great fit for you, and if we laugh And then now you are in a better mood. Now you are 31% smarter than you were when you got on the call with me. And now, whatever you hear, your mind is able to understand that this is what I exactly need. Whereas if you were 31% less smarter, maybe you would think this is not what I need. And then now you buy from me, and then that stuff changed your entire life, all because you were in a better mood.
Yeah, I really like that also. And then on the flip side, it's like, because of being skeptical of people that sell stuff, it's like if you're 31% smarter, you'll be able to kind of smell through the bullshit or see through it if somebody's trying to sell you snake oil. But the whole point is that if somebody's trying to sell you something like that, they probably won't try to make you laugh and won't try to make you smarter because their whole selling basis is that they're smarter than you and they kind of know your weak points and your psychological tricks, which is what I want to get into now, which is the whole social media algorithm thing about how they try to get you to stay on longer, which is ironic because this is going to be on social media, on YouTube, but
Yeah.
and probably other platforms. But have you seen the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma?
I haven't, but I heard a lot of people talk about it. They said like how they work with psychologists to find out emotional triggers of people, something like that. Is that what?
Yeah. So my background of this comes into I saw one of the guys who was in this documentary. I go to UMass. He came to UMass on a book tour. He wrote a book called Zucked, Waking Up to the Facebook Catastrophe. And this guy, his name is Roger McNamee. He's an absolute beauty. He was one of the first investors in Facebook, one of the early guys in it. And for so long, he was thinking about how it was like connecting people and doing good and helping people. And he was loving his investment. And then around 2015, 2016, with everything that started happening with the election and everything, he started kind of wake up and be like, wow. Like, and he kind of brought it to the attention of Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg about how this stuff was going on. And they were kind of just like, yeah, like we don't care. And he started working with other people who were in the documentary, this guy Tristan and all these former Google engineers who were basically talking about, like, whistleblowers talking about how they design these things to basically hack your psychology, hack your weaknesses, hack your
Wow.
primal urges. And the thing is, I knew most of the stuff before watching the documentary, but there's something about, again, I read it in a book, but watching it, it's more entertaining and they're able to just really give it to you in a visual way that's so convincing. And one of the huge things is that they basically have this whole voodoo doll thing, and you're the voodoo doll, and they can basically make you do whatever they want you to do by sending you certain notifications. They want you to go onto this app. They'll send you this notification that this person did this, and they know that
Yeah.
you're more likely to open it because you open it at a this percent rate when you know that that person's going to be there or this person.
Yeah.
And it was so eye opening to me that I deleted all my social media for 4 months. I got back on the beginning of this year because I needed to start posting stuff about my business. But I
Yeah.
know that I'm a lot more conscious now, and I have a strategy that I'm using this as a business media, not really a social media. I'm using it to
Yeah.
network with people and to share my message and to share my growth and to share everything that's going on. And I think it's so important for people that if they don't watch that documentary, to know that this stuff is going on because they're going to be toying with you whether you know it or not. So you might as well become a little more aware of how they're toying with you.
Yeah, man. I want to talk about one more topic. This is stuff that most people don't want to talk about it because everybody can relate with it and everyone have a lot of shame around it. And this stuff fucks up our mind more than anything else. You know what it is?
Negative self-talk.
Pornography.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have struggles with pornography, but they don't talk about it loud. But this stuff is like, I would like to think that, I mean, it's easy. All we got to do is go to a porn site and go to YouTube and look two videos and see how many people watched both of those videos. And that kind of puts things into perspective. But the thing is, there's a lot of shame around pornography. And it's the same thing, whatever social media is doing to us, it's the same thing that this stuff is doing as well. And that is completely messing up our heads. And because they don't talk about it, like social media, now people are talking about it. There's a documentary which is spreading awareness. Um, you will hear posts on LinkedIn about this stuff. In fact, a couple of months ago, I So it's only like very recently I started using LinkedIn for the business purposes. Before that, it was kind of like I used to just post whatever I felt like posting. I used to talk about a lot of these things, and I made a post about pornography, and I was extremely scared to post that because it's like shock. But the response that I got for that video was huge, and a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people even commented that a lot of people would be afraid to like this video because they don't want to be associated with it. But they were saying that I'm sure this video helped a lot of people because when they watch it, first of all, they're thinking that, okay, I'm not strange. I'm not weird. It's not just me. And because that's what everybody's thinking. And I believe that this is the stuff that needs to be brought into light as well. And first of all, to let people know that, hey, it's okay that you're watching porn, first of all. You're not a pervert for doing that. You're not a horrible human being. You should not feel ashamed about it, and get people used to that first, and then start talking about like the negative effects. But like the thing now happening is that every time people hear about porn, and man, to be very honest, I mean, like I'm kind of in the process of like never looking at that stuff again. It's kind of weird. Like it's the first time I'm talking to you and I'm talking about pornography. But it's a lot of people can relate with it. When people are listening to it, they would be like, I can relate with it. And if they have that awareness, if they feel not shameful about it, then they can go ahead and kind of step back from it. Because like I don't know if you heard about it, like porn addiction has made a lot of couples divorce, like a lot of breakups, a lot of separation happen because of porn, because people consume the stuff and they have this unrealistic expectation of reality, and I can relate with it. And only after I quit watching that stuff and I started going inside my head. And then, when you go inside your head, you get access to these tools. You know what I'm talking about? You see things that you never saw before. And you see, like, you would see about, I'm sure you had this thing about social media, which is why you deleted it when you were meditating, when you were spending more time in your head. You realize, like, oh my God, social media was really messing me up, right? It's like you realize that you have that realization. And that's when I started having realization about how dangerous pornography actually is, and I just want more people to talk about it.
Yeah, I did not expect you to bring that up. Nobody's brought that up before, but I
Imagine.
could definitely take it and run with it because I know that at least from my personal like point of view, like I've stopped like looking at that stuff, watching all that stuff, and like that's a very unpopular thing for a 22-year-old guy to say. And I'm
Yeah,
completely confident in like my reason for not doing it anymore is because I honestly have gotten to the point, like, not even saying that like I'm above anything, but I just think like it's weird. I see the world from a different point of view than I used to. I'm a higher vibration than I used to be. I used to
yeah,
be down in the dumps and all that stuff, and that's fine.
yeah,
I don't blame anybody who's there, but I also know that I want to get it from your perspective. I think it's very because I think if you're over like the age of 18 or 21, like you should be able to have the either responsibility or the know-how. And obviously when you get addicted to something, there's not much you can do. You don't have a lot of control. You need help. But like I think it's especially harmful to middle schoolers who are getting into this stuff because they have phones and they're going through changes. And when you're at that age, you can't really be blamed because you're going to get addicted to something like that hands down. So I want to know what's your how would you say combating that? Because if you just tell like middle school kids to not watch porn, that'll just make them want to watch it more. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Actually, I was having a conversation about this with someone on LinkedIn he has 4 kids, and he's very passionate about being a father. And you can't blame a teenager for this. It's a responsibility of a parent. And if a parent goes at it, I mean, I've heard when I was in school, I've heard stories from my friends where they got caught watching porn at home, and then things just went so crazy. And then their parents just, so angry at them as if like they've done this crime. And that's not going to make anything better. That is not going to make anything better. But I think it's important to I think it's important that parents have an open communication with their kids about sex. Say that, hey, this is how it works. And they want to first of all find out about it from their parents and not from friends or worse, porn. You don't want to find out about
Mm.
sex through porn. That's going to mess your head up in that age, and then it's just so damaging for the brain for someone who's a teenager. But if the parent is open about talking about this stuff at home, now all of a sudden this topic is not taboo anymore, because that's a problem. Like nobody want to talk about it now. And now, yes, they're going to go to school and they are going to be influenced. But the good thing is, because they've had that open conversation already at home, in their mind, it's not taboo at all. So they're going to come home and talk about it with their parents because they have created that environment for them to talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
And that is going to make it a whole lot of difference. That's what I think. I mean, that I don't think, I don't know if there's another solution for that. You can't, how are you going to blame a teenager for watching porn? Like, you
Yeah,
know, it,
I
yeah.
I like that perspective on it, and I put that in the same realm as the same thing about parents having an open conversation about mental health. But the problem is that I think that it would probably, honestly, I don't know which conversation would be harder for parents to have, talking about sex or talking about mental health, but it's probably the mental health, because a lot of parents wouldn't be willing to admit that they've gone through mental health things themselves because we're not given the tools to emotionally talk about it.
Yeah, I think what is done in terms of like the damage. Um, I think people who are, I don't have kids, you don't have kids, but people who don't have kids, or people who are like young, or they have kids but they're like, 2 or 3 or under 5 years old, and they know about this stuff. um I really think, man. Oh, okay, this is another thing that kind of, this triggers me. I'm triggered right now, okay? I'm triggered right now. um if you want to fly an airplane, you need to have a pilot license. If you want to be a doctor, you need to have a medical degree. Engineer, you need to have a degree for that. But if you want to be a parent, all you got to do is just bust it in. How is that fair? I don't think that's fair. I think that's doing a disservice to humanity, because you're bringing this other individual to the world who did not ask for it, who don't know who have no idea what's going on, and the parents are not going through any sort of parenting coaching. Like, there's someone that I know, okay, and I was at so I lived in Boston for a year, and I was in the. It's funny that I'm talking to you, and you go to UMass, and I'm kind of familiar with that area. I was at Prudential. I was at the Barnes and Nobles, and I saw this book that said, I don't remember the title, but it was a book for parents who are new parents. So I knew someone who was a new parent. So when I saw something, I'm like, maybe I can get this book for them. And I took it and I walked to the checkout counter, and then I stopped and I'm like, I am making a huge mistake here. If I give this book to them, they're gonna flip out and be like, I don't need parenting advice. It's like, and that's so crazy. It's like an ego thing. It's like, you offended me by buying me this book. It's like, God. Like, the world has came to that place, and it's important for parents to understand that you can't just you can't just join the military and not have any training and go to Afghanistan with AK-47s and rescue the hostages. You need training for this stuff. And if you want to raise another human being, damn, you need some good training for that. And you got to take care of your mind first, because otherwise you're not going to take care of this other person, just like how we were talking about in a sales context. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective that I never heard before. And it's all just about the same core topics of building this foundation, building this self-love, emotional intelligence, mental health foundation. Because if you don't have that foundation, it's going to be it's basically like, if you're not rooted, think about yourself as a tree. If you're not rooted in your priorities, in your beliefs, in your authenticity, well,
Yeah.
when the wind blows, and the wind could be somebody throwing hate at you, or somebody
Yeah.
getting offended, or somebody
Yeah.
trying to offend you, you're going to be easily uprooted. If you're
Yeah.
not very, 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 And that's another thing that I could obviously rant about for so long, is that people in our society get offended way too easily. And I
Oh,
know that this was me. I used to be way too sensitive. And I started realizing, first of all, this isn't helping me with anything, but it's also not helping me grow and learn, because I don't like to hear other people's opinions. I don't like to hear other people's takes and other people's stories. And the whole thing is that if you want to call Earth a school, I think that Earth is basically like a spiritual elementary school. That's what I would kind of compare it to. Every
yeah,
single person can be your teacher, and not all teachers are the same. This person might teach you a lesson of something not to do. This
yeah,
person might teach you something to do, but you can learn from every single person. And I don't like that people have this kind of idea that they're above it, that people don't have humility. And I really like that you share that perspective, because that's really showing humility, that even just like having parenting coaching could be very interesting. I'm not sure, maybe that does exist now, but that seems like that could be another industry that really blows up. And another thing is that really that you like to hear all this stuff about how the what is it, the unemployment rate is up and all this stuff. And I look at it from a different perspective, that we have all of this going on in the world, and the world hasn't ended, and the unemployment rate is up, which means there are more people that don't need to be working right now, that can find other ways to contribute to society, which it could be talking about mental health and teaching this stuff, because there always needs to be more people doing this, or people coaching about parents, or people rediscovering their skills and their hobbies and their passions that they neglected as a child, but now they have a bunch of free time. And it's also different. If they need the money, they might need to go work, but that's also a lot of the root of all of our issues, is kind of the wealth inequality, which is just a whole another like rabbit hole, a whole nother like topic.
yeah. I mean, I don't think it's not like money is the root of all evil or anything like that, but the way people look at money can sometimes make money the root of all evil, and they can prioritize that a lot, and everything else around it, all the stuff that we're talking about kind of gets under the stuff. Like, I mean, you would even see people who are extremely successful financially who are struggling in other areas, and and then, I mean, that's okay, but like the main problem is that, I mean, you have a lot of I forgot their names, some rappers who, the guy, the Linkin Park guy who took his own life a couple of years ago. This guy, I mean, think about it. They have everything. Like, from a perspective of an outsider, they have everything that like everyone would wish to be in their position. But still, and that's when it gets really messed up, because if you are lacking something in your life, you can at least say that if I get that, I will be happy. But what if you have everything that you possibly could have? Like, I mean, you see um, people who are celebrities who have got it all. They, engaging in like destructive behaviors, and some of them unfortunately have taken their lives. But the others, I mean, if you look at Mike Tyson, I don't know if you follow Mike Tyson.
Love
He
Mike
was
Tyson.
Yeah, so he was an extremely rebellious character, but now you see that he's much more in peace with himself because he kind of tamed his inner lion. Very scary guy.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been watching some of his podcasts lately, and
Yeah,
he's just such a wise man. And it's just a type of person who's like, you learn from your mistakes. You did what you did, and he's able to introspect and look back on it and be like, I remember one of the big things somebody asked him, like was he a bad man or something? And he was like, I was like a little scared boy. Like it was all fear. Like he
I
had
was
no
a
love
scared
in him.
boy, right? I was a
Yeah.
scared boy.
I love the way he talks also, and he's just like you could barely understand him,
Very
but he's just
himself, very
but he
himself,
but
though.
he's just like, you just feel the energy radiating from somebody like that. And it's just important that people like that, or people like anything, share their message, because it's not about the money. And the only thing that I would say is that it's basically that you need to have enough money where you have like a solid foundation. So like I'm a proponent of like universal basic income, like Andrew Yang. And some people would detract and say, well, where are we going to find all this money? First of all, we print money, so that's where
Yeah,
we find it. And second of
yeah,
all, where do we find the money to go invade other countries and bomb them and do all this stuff? We print it and we make bills of it, because that's where our priorities seem to lie as a country. And it seems that when a lot of younger people that are my age and younger start taking those office, I think a lot more people will be like, do we really need to be doing this? Do we really need all these useless wars for our safety, even though they're not causing anybody any more safety? oh, maybe we could invest in our infrastructure and, you know, if the poverty level is $10,000 a year, if everybody's getting $1,000 of universal basic income per year, then maybe the unemployment rate doesn't need to stay the same as it is. More people don't need jobs. More people need to feel like they're contributing to society. And it doesn't
Yeah,
even have to be in a monetary sense. But I think, again, a big problem about that is that the people that are in power don't want that, because if you spread the wealth out, then they don't have as much power. Because that's really what it
yeah,
comes down to, is that money is power. And that's also the same thing in sales. When you try to sell somebody something that is more expensive, you're gonna, it's in a weird way, it makes it more desirable. If you have two same products, say you're selling a t-shirt and it's like a $10 t-shirt, but another company selling the same t-shirt for $150, same exact t-shirt, but perception is that, wow, if I have this shirt that's more expensive, I will be more powerful or more status. And that's kind of the big charade, or the big lie we've been convinced of, that's
yeah.
going to be reprogrammed.
Yeah, I mean, there's this umbrella that costs like $300. Why? I mean, why would you want to spend three? I mean, I'm not judging people who buy that, but I'm thinking, why would you want to spend $300 for an umbrella? And when was the last time you went for a walk in the rain? Oh, I don't like to go out in the rain. Right. So this umbrella is like just a symbol of status. Are you like, I'm really into like minimalism. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so as you can see behind me, I have books. All I really spend money on is food and books. I don't really buy new clothes anymore. Actually, I just started buying some clothes for like my business, for like branding, but that's just like, I look at that as marketing. But other
Yeah.
than that, like, I'm not the type of person that's going to try to buy things to impress anybody else, because I know that I have everything that I need within me. As cliche as that might sound, it's the
Yeah.
truth. And I know
Yeah.
that my value to society comes from me making content and spreading my vibes and spreading everything that I have to offer. So I'm not the type of person that's ever really looking to buy things anymore. As weird as that may sound, you don't really need to buy anything. It's obviously good to like treat yourself, but like things that like treat yourself because you want it. Don't buy. I know that I used to buy things because like I was like sad, and I thought that like buying something would give you that little hit of happiness, and a lot of people can relate to that. They go shopping when they're sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. And it all comes down to, I love how every single thing, like food, the food you eat, the things that you buy, the clothes that you wear, all comes down to how you're feeling inside.
Yeah, dude. I mean, so recently I made a change in my diet. Not like a change. I decided that until like without putting like an expiration date on it, I am just going to eat the same thing every single day. So for breakfast, lunch, dinner, I'm going to eat exactly the same thing. And yesterday at night, I remember I was feeling a little pressure because I was like pushing myself in some areas. I was expanding my comfort zone. And I felt like, it would be nice to order a pizza right now. And then immediately justification came into my mind. It's Sunday anyways. So tomorrow I'm going to get back on the wheel again. So I can eat pizza. Nothing bad's going to happen. And then I'm like, hold on a second. How many times have you done this before? No. Eat the same thing. And then I felt hungry and I ate my same dinner and I'm like, this tastes pretty good. The reason why I didn't want to eat the same thing before is because I would not eat because I'm hungry. I want to eat because I want to escape some kind of a feeling within me that I'm not even aware of. But when you're aware of that, you're like, oh, I don't need to eat right now because I'm not hungry. And when you're hungry, you're like, okay, this is a natural rhythm of the body. I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat, and I'm eating a little bit, and I'm satisfied, and I don't need to eat like a dessert on top of that. I don't need to have those things. Yeah, man, this has been a 1.5 hour conversation so far. We were exactly talking about this in the beginning of the call. You were saying that you were talking to someone and like
Yeah, it
hours
just it
passed by
just
and you
it
don't
just
even.
spirals into something else. I'm curious. So what's like the thing that you eat every day? Because I'm always looking for like new foods to eat, or like, what is it?
Yeah, I hope like vegans are not watching it because they're gonna chop my head off. um, I would for breakfast. I would eat. I don't know if you know it. It's like a spinach feta roll. So I just go to the grocery store and just buy. It's not the most healthiest thing, but I'm also not trying to be extremely healthy. I'm more looking into sustain. Like, is it sustainable? So not too unhealthy, not too healthy, somewhere in the middle, fairly healthy, protein check, vegetables check, carbohydrates check, essentials check. Cool. So I eat that in the morning. So after I work out, when I eat it, it just fills me up and I feel good. Because I'm foods are like the food is in the world for humans to enjoy. So I believe that we are meant to enjoy food in the right way, in the right amount. So I eat that in the morning, and then for lunch I would eat like 3 eggs and 2 slices of bread, and at night for dinner I would just eat vegetables with chicken and rice. That's it.
I would say that I considered going vegetarian. I read a book about it, and it's something I would strongly consider once I'm not living with my parents anymore, just because like they're pretty anti it. But like I
Yeah,
see, I just like hearing from other people's perspectives and like all the cool things that other people are eating, and
yeah.
there's just so many foods out there that I've never heard of.
Can I share my perspective on like being vegetarian? Because I have been vegetarian for 8 months.
Oh yeah,
I like to think that do what you feel called towards. So in the beginning of 2020, I had this calling that I want to be vegetarian. But then 8 months later, and then literally one day I switched after being non-vegetarian for 25 years. One day I changed. And a lot of people ask me, how did you do that? And I had no struggles doing that. But then what happened is after 8 months, I had this other calling that I want to go back and not be vegetarian now. And then I just switched back to not being vegetarian. And it was also like I like to go to the gym, I like exercising and all that stuff. So when you're a vegetarian, it's much more difficult for you to get your protein in. This has been a great conversation, man.
yeah, no. I truly appreciate you coming on, and definitely let me know if you ever want to just like talk again. I know I learned a ton, and there's just a lot more that we'll always be able to learn.